Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. I know last week we diverged from Tomb Raider lore to discuss my response to the Metroid trainer in a video I will link down below. That was a very fun video, I had a lot of fun making it. But today, we're returning back to our Tomb Raider roots to discuss a seldomly talked about subject amongst the Tomb Raider YouTube community. Typically, all Tomb Raider videos discuss characters or events in the three main game series, those being the original Classic timeline, the second Legends timeline, and more recently, the Survivor timeline. If you may even talk about the two movie timelines, namely the 2001 movie timeline with Angelina Jolie's take on Lara Croft, the best movie version in my opinion, and then the 2018 Tomb Raider timeline starring Alicia Vikander as Lara Croft. But what no one talks about are the other three Tomb Raider timelines, and today we're discussing those three timelines and more. My father mentioned him Tomb Raider, the series. So let's start chronologically. The first timeline we'll be covering will be Tomb Raider, the series, originally released in 1997, only a year and a half after Tomb Raider 1 was released, as a part of a crossover comic with the Witchblade series and created by Top Cow Productions. Eventually that one-off comic would be picked up again by Top Cow and made into a full-fledged series running from 1999 to 2005, thus actually surviving the end of Classic Tomb Raider by 2 years. This version of Lara Croft resembled, but wasn't identical to, the Lara Croft we know and love from the classic games. It was the first source to come up with the idea that Lara's parents died horribly in a plane crash, which would be the event that sparked the adventurous side of our favorite Croft. The series ran for 50 issues, and while not all episodes or issues are a part of a larger narrative, there is generally a whole story being told in the comic, introducing a host of new characters, including rival archaeologist in Tomb Raider, Chase Carver, and bringing back old characters like Curtis Trent and Werner von Croy, which you might recognize from the classic series. The most important piece of information about this timeline is revealed at the end, that this version of Lara Croft is considered the real Lara, and that the video game and movie incarnations of her are simply dramatic retellings of this one's adventures. As in the comic itself, we see classic Lara acting as a tour guide for the Lara Croft Museum over a century in the future. Tomb Raider Journeys. Tomb Raider Journeys, released January 2001 and ending in May of 2003, was an alternate universe to the aforementioned Tomb Raider the series. In this universe, Lara Croft does not appear with Chase Carver or any of the other recurring characters from the game or the previous comic. Instead, the concept behind this comic is that Lara had caused one of her mentors to die, and in his memory swore off to never kill anyone ever again, making her the only version of Lara to be so conscientious about sparing people's lives. This series ran for a mere 12 issues, but continued its predecessor's habit of including the supernatural within its short runtime, much more so than the games and the movies ever have. And again, like its predecessor, it makes some very big revelations about Lara Croft, including the fact that Lara is an immortal spirit of sorts that constantly reincarnates along with a new rival character known as Jonathan Kagan, and is ultimately a comic in which Lara attempts to break this never-ending cycle of violence between the two of them. Despite the fact that this version of Lara Croft shares the same background as her predecessor, the short comic series manages to make her distinct from all other versions of the character, a very commendable accomplishment all things considered. Revisioned Tomb Raider Animated Series. Tomb Raider Revisioned Tomb Raider Animated Series, if you want to use the full name, was an animated web series that was released to the internet starting July 10th of 2007 until its finale aired in November 13th of the same year. This version of Tomb Raider is arguably the most unique of them all. It's the only one to not only be animated, but to have the approach of having a different art designer and writer for almost every episode, and more specifically, every plot arc of the show. This use of different animation styles led to each arc being very different in terms of tone, with the first arc having a dark, almost anime OVA style direction, while episode 5 and 6 having animation that flows like the page of an actual comic book. Whilst there are plot arcs, as I mentioned, the series itself does not have an ultimate conclusion to the story, simply detailing individual moments in the life of this universe's Lara Croft, from her teenage years to her adulthood, each contained within their own arcs. Despite the fact that the show has no overarching story and each episode ranges from 5 to 7 minutes on average, it does an excellent job of giving the viewer a lot to chew on when piecing together the personality and character of this Lara Croft. And then again, considering this series lasted a mere 10 episodes, a combined runtime of 1 hour, this feat is all the more impressive. And that wraps up the 3 Tomb Raider timelines that nobody talks about. I, for one, will be talking more about each of the 3 series as the channel goes on and continues to grow. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed, please click the like button and subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to see more of me and my content. Leave a comment down below, and if you have any questions, comments, or critiques, I'll be happy to hear them, and I'll see you next week. And by the way, my business email is in the description below. Next week, we'll be returning to Metroid, so stay tuned and have a good day.